Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Maddie Elling. She's the co-owner of Hosta Hill, and I hope you've all tasted her kimchi. Yeah. She's going to tell us about her business, and you can think about it as a kind of import replacement business, but you can also think about it as just one of the coolest businesses in the Berkshires.
Hey everyone, so yeah, I'm Maddie Elling. I'm a local. I graduated from Monument Mountain, and I did not go to college. I traveled after school, and I would come back and work in the summers, and it got to a point where I was traveling in the winters, coming back in the summers, doing landscape gardening, and after a few years of that, I got a little burnt out in the gardening and also a little bit burnt out in the Berkshires, and so I said, okay, it's my last year here doing this. I'm gonna get out of here for the winter and go away for a few years and really ground down somewhere. And then I met my partner Abe, and I've been here ever since. And so we met over 5 years ago, and about 4.5 years ago we started Hosta Hill. And so Hosta Hill is based out of West Stockbridge, and we produce lacto-fermented vegetables and tempeh. Are you guys familiar with lacto-fermented vegetables like sauerkraut and kimchi and tempeh? Some, yeah, some no. Yeah, so it's really an ancient, these are all ancient foods. Sauerkraut is made, it's traditionally made in Germany. Kimchi is made in Korea. We can all make these anywhere, and they're fermented vegetables, so they're chopped vegetables that are salted, aged through a fermentation process, and they're full of probiotics, and they're great condiments. And we sell them in all sorts of stores and restaurants in the area. And then we also make tempeh, which is a cultured bean product. And I'm going to go through a little slideshow. Maybe I'll go through the slideshow now. This is really just kind of a visual, and it's kind of like the evolution of our business. And when we started it, we were at the time working with a cheesemaker making blue cheese right in Great Barrington, and we started selling his cheese at a little farmer's market in Norfolk, Connecticut. And every week we'd go to the market, and we were selling cheese, which was great cheese, but we were like, we could have so much more on the table. And at the time we were raising pigs and turkeys and goats and chickens and growing all sorts of vegetables and fermenting and brewing beer and making cheese, and we were very ambitious and eager to really sink our teeth into something. And also being in the Berkshires, we really felt that there was lots of potential to have a business, really lots of support. We saw at the markets and all the local food stores. So we started our business, Hosta Hill, and it was really by the seat of our pants. Neither of us had any business experience. My partner Abe had previously, he did go to school. He went to college studying biology, ecology, and he was also trained with outdoor leadership. I'm from a more kind of artistic background, very creative, hands-on, and so I think we really go well together. He kind of has the straight business mindset, and I add the creativity into it. So this was at one of our very first markets in the first few years, and yes, we've been doing this for about 4.5 years now, and we'll have our 5-year anniversary in the spring. So I just made these labels, I wrote them out, we didn't do any branding, didn't really have a logo. I mean, we had kind of our look, so this was our tempeh at the time we were packaging it in that. The 2 jars, we just had our sauerkraut and our kimchi, and that's the cheese. The sauerkraut and the kimchi. And it's funny because the kimchi that we're selling here, we actually now make a more traditional style kimchi, and this kimchi that's here is now what we call our crimson kraut. So that this kimchi has become kind of another product. And that's our tempeh. And then we do some rebranding. This was about 3 years ago. We had a friend who was a great graphic designer, and he finally gave us a really solid brand. So it's really clear, it kind of really sticks in your mind, it's nice and pretty and crisp. And now we have a new market set up. It's kind of, has more of a punch to it, lots of great colors. We have all sorts of, we added in a few new lines of varieties of fermented vegetables. We do now our juices, which are the brines from the ferments. And we also have our tempeh. We grow a lot of our stuff as well. So again, the brand has really kind of come a long way over the past few years with our tempeh there. And we recently just launched our hot sauce.
What does Hosta Hill mean?
What does Hosta Hill mean? So yeah, again, we started this business by the seat of our pants. At the time, we were living on my parents' property in West Stockbridge, which we still we live a few houses down on their property, and they had kind of coined the name of their property Hosta Hill because they had tons of hostas, which are a plant, and they grow very vigorously. They're a flower-like, this kind of, the logo in the middle and the circle is kind of like the leaf of a hosta. And I like the idea of it. So we basically took the name and ran with it, and it's really stuck. But I like the idea of how the plant grows so vigorously, and you can like divide it up, and it continues to grow, and you can make more and more plants out of it. And so that was just kind of, I like kind of the thought of that and energy of that. Yeah, so again, it really just came on a whim. And yeah, so we sell all over the Berkshires. We're very well distributed in the Berkshire area, and then we also sell in the Pioneer Valley and in Boston, and we're starting to get into the New York City area, which is really exciting. At the moment, we do all our own distribution, so we are driving it all around the state pretty much, but we are just starting to work with a small distributor who's going to be, they'll take it to the city and to Boston and other places, outside of the States. So we're really excited about that. And so some things that, at this point, Abe is kind of managing the kitchen. I do all the office work, kind of the outreach, order fulfillment, branding. And in the beginning, we were just both doing everything. There was a lot of overlap, and it's really refreshing breaking it up and kind of dividing up the jobs. And that's been a learning curve for me because, again, none of us really had too much business experience. But we started working with Keith from the Small Business Network last year. And so he was one of our mentors, and he was great. And we finally wrote a business plan. And he started to get us looking at our financials and getting all our numbers intact and organized so we could really look to our profits and loss in different reports with all our numbers to see where our numbers are at and how well we're doing like month to month. So that was a really nice breath of fresh air to really have some nice guidance there. Yeah. And let's see. Alice gave me a bunch of questions, so I'm kind of going down the list. Are there any questions at this point? Some things that maybe people aren't so familiar with?
How did you finance the business?
How do we finance the business? Yeah, so we put all of our savings into the business. We also did 2 years into the business. So when we first started, we were working, kitchens are a big thing. You need a licensed kitchen to sell at a farmer's market. So we were bouncing around kitchens in the area using the church kitchen, some other kitchens that were good for what we were doing at the time. And then we got to a point where we were really wanting our own space or some more kind of space that we had, access to more of the time than we needed. And we decided to do a Kickstarter. Are people familiar with Kickstarter? It's kind of an online platform to fundraise. So we made a video and we put it out there on social media, and we raised $14,000 specifically to build a kitchen in the basement of the house that we now live in, and we still live in it. And we raised the money throughout the community, a lot through social media. We were going to markets between here and Northampton, and that created a lot of enthusiasm and interest. That's pretty much how we financed the business to this point. We've taken out some small loans from family too. Yeah, and right now we're getting to the point where we're looking forward to, making bigger decisions with more money than we have. So we are, we're going to be taking out some loans from banks.
So what's the difference between a Kickstarter and a loan?
Yeah, so with Kickstarter, you present a project to Kickstarter, and there's also all sorts of other ones like Indiegogo. They're just different platforms online that you can use, and you come up with your story and your plan, how much money you want to raise, why, and you give rewards too. And people give you the money, and you basically just fundraise, and you pay them back in rewards to whatever extent you'd like. And with a loan, you go to a bank, you go to a family member, and you ask, can I borrow $10,000, and then you're paying them back, and that also includes interest. So with Kickstarter, the interest is out. There's none of that. So yeah.
What reward did you offer to your Kickstarter investors?
Yeah, so we had thank you cards that we sent out at the end. We did T-shirts. That T-shirt actually is one that we printed up. We did gift certificates. We did kitchen tours and classes. Yeah, and when we did our Kickstarter, you can go online. You can see the video. It's still up. it just really created a nice kind of energy around the project, and people wanted to be involved. People were really like excited for us to get to our goal, and I'd see people at the markets and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I checked your page today, and like, I'll give you more because you're not like quite there yet. And you also have a certain number of days to make your goal. And if you don't make your goal, you don't make any of the money. If you don't make your goal within the time frame, you don't make your money. So, there's some risk involved. Yeah.
Out of the $14,000 that you made, how much was taken away by like fees from Kickstarter? Because I know
Yeah.
personal experience, there's
Definitely.
a bit of.
Yeah, so I think in the end we got about, I can't remember the exact percentage that Kickstarter takes, but they do take a percentage, and we got like around $12,000 in the end. And we also, our friend who made the video, we promised him a certain amount of the profits. So that went into it as well. Yeah, that's a great question.
Could
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about how you grow your own
Sure.
produce?
Yep, so a big part of our products are the ingredients that go into it. We love the dynamic work of growing the vegetables. We've always kind of had our hand in that part. I've worked on some farms in the area. And so the past few years we've been collaborating with farms. We'll grow a bunch of the crops to store through the winter and make our products. So, cabbage, carrots, onions, garlic, ginger, hot peppers, those all are ingredients for sauerkrauts and kimchis. And so we're able to grow a lot of those things, even the ginger. And so this past year was a year where the 2 years before last year, we were working in collaboration with a farmer where we trade our labor in exchange for vegetables. And this past year was our first year where we got our own piece of land, about 3 acres, and we grew all those crops, cabbages and carrots and onions and garlic. And now we have those. We've pretty much processed them all at this point. So our production is still very high to the amount that we're growing. And so we're really trying to balance that out. But that's really a goal, is to be growing the primary ingredients. Our other product is tempeh, which is a bean product. It's a cultured bean product. And so we're making a variety right now with soybeans, but you can also use other beans and grains. And we can all grow those in this area. It takes equipment, it takes space and time. And we did grow some soy this summer, a few acres, came out really well, and we have a combine, which is something that you drag through the field to harvest all the beans, but we had a piece of equipment break this summer, and we were up to our ears in work, and we did not. The soy is still out there, so we won't be harvesting it this year, but it'll be turned back into the earth, and yeah, it'll be great nutrients. So, but we did just recently, last week, we picked up about 2,000 pounds of soybeans from a farm in Hadley. So we'll be making all of our tempeh with beans, organic soybeans that are locally grown. Typically we get them through a local distributor, which gets them from Wisconsin. They're still organic and non-GMO, but again, we can grow all these ingredients here, but no one has I think it comes down to the equipment to harvest it. Or the people who are growing it, it's all going into animal feed, it's all being subsidized and sent to larger processing facilities where it's mixed and then probably sold all around the country. Yeah.
So how did you find out that people would buy your kimchi and sauerkraut instead of buying it from some other brand from the supermarket?
Yeah, so, we first started with just going to one farmer's market down in Norfolk, Connecticut. And we really found that going to the market, selling through the markets was a great way to test our customer base, seeing firsthand what they were liking, what people weren't liking, the different varieties we were introducing. And going to the market before we started selling, we kind of looked around and what are people, what's missing in the market, and what area can we fill? And so we really saw that with fermented vegetables and a different kind of protein, like tempeh. And now we sell at markets, stores, restaurants, cafes, and it's great.
Are you trying to license it to actual grocery stores, or are you trying to keep it sort of local and like Guido's and like the co-op down the street and stuff?
Yeah. So when we first got our wholesale license, we were excited to get into the co-op and Berkshire Organics and Guido's, but now, and we just want to sell as much as we can in this area. We don't want to go national so much. We'd like to stay kind of regional, so in the Northeast. But Big Y carries our products. They approached us this summer and picked us up, which was really exciting. And I'm also talking with them about getting into other big Y locations in Connecticut, out in Western Mass. Yeah, so definitely, right now, we're really looking to scale up our production and scale up our wholesaling. And that's where distributors come in. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys have other questions? Why do you think people buy your kimchi and sauerkraut?
We feel really well supported in the Berkshires with our business. I mean, people really like it. That's what they tell us. We have something really good, I guess. I love it, but yeah, we have a really great support base in this, direct area, and then going out to Northampton and going out to Boston and doing the markets, and they're tasting and they're saying, oh my gosh, like this is delicious. I usually get this other stuff, but this is so much better. And then they're asking, where can we get this? And yeah, so people are trying it. They're really liking it. It's not comparing to the commercially made stuff that's made in, huge amounts with various vegetables. And I guess our business can be an import replacement business. People are making sauerkrauts and kimchis all around the country, and obviously, kimchi originates from Korea. So we're even shipping kimchi from Korea too, in California, and our sauerkrauts and kimchis are still sitting on the shelf next to sauerkrauts and kimchis from California and Florida and, Hawaii, and so there's competition.
And why do you think it's better?
I think people are into buying local. I think people think it tastes fresh. People are always saying it tastes so fresh. We age our kimchi about 2 months. So it really, it's very ripe. It has a certain stink to it, smell to it, very pungent. Sorry, I don't remember. Yeah, he was just saying he loves kimchi, but he can't really bring it home, put it in his fridge because it stinks up his whole fridge. But yeah, but again, people are just, I think they love the idea of it's local, it's made in small batches, it's organic, it's fresh, it's different, and people really want that and taste it.
And they can ask you about it too. They can ask you how you made it. Did you grow that cabbage?
Yeah, they're making that connection. They're seeing the makers. We're growing a lot of the ingredients, all these connections that people really love, and there's really spirit behind it.
I like that about you. I like your crimson kraut.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Thank you.
particularly like it because it's not really like anybody else's.
Yeah.
And it's colourful. and
Yeah.
it's creative, and I like
Yeah.
that about it.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah.
Ask you a question?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about online? Would you offer that to people so it could reach other areas?
Yeah.
Or you?
We do offer it online,
Oh.
and so we want to stay regional. We don't want to sell in stores out in California. We've gotten inquiries, and we don't want to ship it across the country. But we will ship a jar or two to California.
Okay.
In that cases.
Individually.
Yeah, and so there's 2 online stores that sell our stuff, Food 52 and Food Lin. They're both these online marketplaces, and then we just launched our website. Actually, just posted on Facebook today that we launched a new website. We have a new online store. Yeah, so we're shipping to Florida, and which is fun, but it's it's not our main goal, but it's sure if people want a jar or 2, we can ship it to them. Yeah.
So, you're 4 or 5 years into the business. I was wondering if you could comment to some of the, people who are thinking of starting a business, what kind of problems you ran into and who you went to help solve them, because I'm imagining that, although you and your partner are probably pulling most of the weight, you had to turn to other resources to help you. I'm curious who that might be.
Definitely. Yeah, there's lots of business owners in the area. We've gone to people like Barth in the back there and asked him, who have you worked with on a website? And but then the main thing in the beginning was kitchen and kitchen equipment and processing. It's really interesting to look back and oh my gosh, when we were first starting, we were cutting everything by hand, and even we were slicing it with a mandolin, which is a slicer, and now we're chopping the cabbages in half and putting them in a big industrial slicer. And even same thing with the tempeh, and we can still, size up and get proper equipment for the tempeh, but we don't have the space for it. And things like going to Keith at the Small Business Network to help us get on top of our numbers. We were we were doing everything by the seat of our pants. We were just going to the markets. We had this cash we were putting in the bank. We weren't accounting for it. And so we would, now looking back, we would recommend like stay on top of your numbers, learn QuickBooks or some other online accounting program. They're really not that difficult. There's lots of resources in the Berkshires. I just went to One Berkshires, a meetup last week with One Berkshires, and it's for entrepreneurs to come together and network. Again, having so many small businesses in the Berkshires, everyone is so willing to share. And I feel really well supported by that and by our customers. And even there's Real Pickles, who are another pickle company out in the Pioneer Valley. And we're friends with them, and you know, they've been around for almost 20 years making pickles similar to ours. And they're happy to share lots of info with us. You know, we're competition, but it's friendly competition, which is really cool to look at, kind of, you know, the competition and the cooperativeness of, you know, how can we work with each other, and, you know, it doesn't have to be this like negative fight. It can be like a positive, growing, you know, experience for everyone, and everyone can benefit. You know, the more sauerkraut that's on the shelf, the more people will start seeing it, and the more people will be consuming it. I know within the past 5-10 years, I think sauerkraut, you know, it's definitely a niche product, and the sales are, I think there's lots of potential.
You said that you developed a business plan. Could you tell a little bit about how that business plan helped you find direction for the company?
Yeah. So finding direction is really setting goals, and where do we want to be, you know, like what are we trying to do and why are we doing it, and where do we want to be in 5 years. So it was kind of like a 5-year plan, and really just like having that, like, you know, we're going day by day, and you can get lots of stuff done every day, but to have something to work towards, we really found was like a great, like, who would have thought, but yeah, you know, it doesn't seem like, yeah, goals. Definitely having goals, setting goals, and getting to them. Yeah.
Is that business plan something that's gonna change, or is it gonna be your business plan forever?
I think it'll change and shift. I mean, right now, you know, we're looking forward to, you know, the kitchen we're growing out of. The kitchen we built for the Kickstarter is the one we're still in. We've been in it for about 2.5 years, and we looked at it as an incubator kitchen, but we're growing out of it quicker than we thought, which is great, but it's also really annoying because we're so tight in space. We can't get the proper equipment we need because lack of space. So now we're looking forward a year ago when we came up with our business plan, we were saying, okay, we're going to be needing to move into a space in the next few years. What's that going to look like? And now we are talking with people, a young couple who has another business in Pittsfield. They're looking into buying a 36,000 square foot building, which is humongous, to operate out of and build a kitchen out of there. And so there's potential collaboration. So that's someone we're in contact with, but we're also continuing to look, okay, what else is available, and yeah. And this is a time when we really need to look at our expenses and our sales and our growth patterns and say, okay, in a year, you know, what can we afford if we're going to try to move our kitchen, and yeah.
What would one of like your jars of sauerkraut cost compared to like a big retailer like Heinz or someone?
Yeah, so we retail the sauerkraut for $7, the crimson and the kimchi for about $8. You know, it's a little different between the different stores across the county. But when we were first trying to get our kimchi into some stores, there's another kimchi that's from California, made in large scale, and it's $5.99. You know, and I had someone tell me, someone who has a small business, and he wanted to carry stuff. He was saying, you know, I can get this stuff for $5.99. Like, how can you sell this for $7 or $8? And you know, when it comes down to our cost of goods, you know, that's a great question. How do we price our products? Like, you know, we take into account all the overhead. What does it cost to run our kitchen with the electricity, the water, and then the cost of goods for the label, jar, lid, you know, design work. Those are all built into the cost. So you start with a kind of a base cost. So it's like $3.50 for the ingredients and all the cost of goods in that jar, and then, you know, the profit that we make. You know, stores are selling it at retail for $7 or $8. We're selling it to the store for about $4 or $5. So, you know, it's getting marked up and marked up. Yeah.
Are you paying yourself a living wage?
That's a good question. we're not really paying ourselves like an hourly, we get like a stipend a month. And it's just, you know, it pays for our rent and it pays for our gas pretty much all through the business because we live upstairs. We can kind of account for it at the moment. But yeah, we've put all our savings into it, and yeah, it's not an hourly wage for sure, but the money's there, but it's also running a business too, so yeah.
So is like 100% of your time spent on this?
For the most part, yeah, 101%. And then, you know, I do some other things. I'm on the committee of the Great Barrington Farmers Market, and I have some other little things that I do, but this is pretty much, yes, we're full on doing this. And the days don't really end. I mean, that's kind of the pros and cons of the business is it's always on your mind, you know, it's 5 o'clock and we walk upstairs and we're still like a lot to talk about, a lot to brainstorm, and yeah, you don't really like clock out ever. But then it's great to be running your own business as well, and you know, this is something that we've created, and kind of the community I feel like surrounded that I have is really, so like I've said, supportive, and yeah.
Are there any other questions before we thank Maddie? And you guys can always, you can call Maddie or email her, or
Yeah.
I can get in touch with her for you if you have questions that come up later.
Yeah, happy to answer anything and any ideas. And I want to say one thing was my partner Abe, he's just has an ongoing churning brain, and right now he's really getting into insects for food, crickets, and there's other types of insects. So that's like some food for thought right there. Yeah.
Well, that's great, because I think we'd like to, now we're going to start the brainstorming that I talked about. So let's thank Maddie. So we have a little bit of time before we go, and I thought we could just start filling out that sheet all together, because we have a lot of great minds all in the room. So let's start with insects. So I thought we could kind of break it down into different segments, like different sectors. So food would be one. And there's different sectors in that worksheet. But who has ideas for things that we could be making here that we're currently importing from far away? Flour. We can go down in food, or we can look at other things too.
Not quite food, but vitamin C.
How do you make that locally?
Wet pine, there are various local, natural vitamin C sources which could potentially be explored.
Cool. I'll put one down that Kate might be interested in. A section of. Kate, do you have any ideas?
Well, I think we can be making sweaters. Socks. Gloves. Hats.
So when you think about this, you can kind of think of Hosta Hill is sauerkraut, and there's sauerkraut from all around the country. People are making it all around. But this is distinctive now to the Berkshires. Just like the Chev that I showed you, the goat cheese. It's kind of a brand that is identified with the Berkshires. So it's our kimchi, it's our Chev. So, you know, you might get socks from Smartwool, but they're not Berkshire socks. So maybe we could design the Berkshire sock. Or like the ukulele factory has designed it's a different product. It's a ukulele, but it looks different, and it comes from here. So that's kind of what we could be thinking about when we're thinking about new businesses in the Berkshires. What's going to be the distinctive, you know, what's going to be something that is a Berkshire product? So Berkshire insects, Berkshire insect bars, or the Berkshire sweater, or like coffee. Like Barth has started Barrington Coffee Roasters, so that's our brand of coffee. Any other ideas?
How about energy bars.
Energy bars. Out of insects?
Yes. And coffee.
Actually, one of our students last year wrote a business plan about energy bars, or about snack bars. What's a different category, Finn, on that sheet? What's a different category?
Shelter.
Shelter. What might fit in that category that we could be making here that we're currently importing?
Furniture?
Furniture. So there's a company that is called Open Desk, I think, that is creating designs for tables that can be made by anybody who has a CNC machine. So there's things like that where we could be making stuff here that is actually designed elsewhere, but we could be making it here. And that way you could actually compete with IKEA, because it's not going to be as expensive as the one-off table that's made by Peter Marquette, like in a very high level and very high craftsmanship. We could actually be, there's kind of different ways to look at it. You could make it like the very artisan kind of table that's only, takes one person a long time to make and is very expensive. But there's other things too that we could be making. There's lots of different technology that we could apply, like what Maddie was talking about. You could have kind of different types of technology that apply to small scale manufacturing. Other examples?
What about shingles?
So that's another thing that I wanted to point to, is that when you start with, like, say we start with wood, just as a resource, there's kind of all these different things that can come from wood, right? So we could create furniture, so let's say tables. We could create shingles. What else, like what are some byproducts of products that you make with wood? What are byproducts of carpentry or milling wood?
Utensils and spoons and.
Okay. And we have people making those in the Berkshires, right? We have great bowls and spoons made in Lenox.
What about fuel, like pellets?
Yeah.
things like that?
So when you kind of start with the resource, you can go in all different directions. So when you're filling out your worksheet, you can fill out the back and the front if you can. That'd be great. You can talk about all different, you don't have to go just to the end product. There's things that come off of the chain, off of the supply chain. Like, what about sawdust? Sawdust for people's chicken coops. Or try to think outside the box.
There's local clay that can be used for ceramics.
So there's another resource, right? Or what about sand or something, if we want to get into the mining business in the Berkshires, which we might not want to do.
The Berkshires used to be known for marble, and 20% of the buildings in Washington D.C. are covered with Berkshire mold. I don't know if anyone's doing anything with it anymore.
I think we have a couple of quarries left, but not very many.
It's actively involved in all food, marble, causing it to so many of these buildings that, yeah, he currently is the marble king of the Berkshires.
Maybe he needs a prince or a princess. What else?
We have a lot of water here.
So how could that result in products or goods? Yeah.
Energy.
Energy. So energy for consumers, energy for production, right? Elizabeth, what were you going to say?
Milling grains.
So we used to have water wheels that would help us mill, right? What is another category on there, Finn?
With energy, which we just covered,
Okay.
and transportation.
Transportation might be tricky. But any ideas?
Taxi system.
Okay, so now we're getting into services, so that's interesting. So that's something that's missing, right? Charlie?
Well, there's thousands of people coming back and forth over the Berkshires that, and fewer people owning their own cars coming from major metropolitan areas. So, you know, buses and limos and, you know, anything related to the taxi.
And an Uber type service?
Or even like an affordable Wasaic, or I guess Amtrak connection would be fantastic.
Right.
So some kind of shuttle between major rail lines and Great Barrington or Pittsfield or Lenox.
And I guess the local taxis are ridiculously expensive because they're not often used, so they have to cover all their downtime. So find a way to maybe scale up a taxi business so it would be affordable.
Cool. What about making some kind of, is there any kind of transportation we could produce ourselves? If you think, just forget about any kind of constraints.
There have been some small scale biofuel collection projects that have existed in creating a more organized biofuel collection program could potentially some promise.
So Rachel, do you want to tell everybody what your idea was last year for a business?
The composting service, as it relates to.
Well, energy or transportation or food or.
Sure. Well, the original idea was to have a bike-powered residential compost pickup service. That seemed a little unfeasible with our terrain in the Berkshires, because it would probably just be me biking the whole time. But the idea is to divert waste or organics from our waste stream and use our resources to recycle that so that it can be used in the community again.
So that kind of fits into the food system and the waste. So that's something we don't have up here is waste.
Perhaps a system at local high schools, because I personally see probably a good 30% of food that kids don't eat go in the same spot where it just gets destroyed. Maybe like a compost service specifically for schools, because we specifically have a separate recycling place for bottles, and be just as effective to have a recycle place for just food,
Yeah.
for compost.
So when you go home, we have already started, but I'd like you to fill out more ideas. And just don't be afraid to come up with crazy and wild ideas, and ask everybody you know about this, okay? So it's not just reliant on your brain, but you can ask everybody. Because we're gonna actually, you're gonna take these ideas, come up with one that you wanna run with. And next week, Keith Gerard and Nancy Schulman from the Small Business Development Center in Pittsfield are gonna come and teach our class. And they're gonna go through the worksheet with you so that you understand what each of those pieces means. And we're gonna, the next step for you guys, after you think about which business you wanna go, or what couple of ideas you like the best, it's gonna be to actually test them out and ask people about them. So I want you to get used to asking people about products and ideas and seeing what people think, because as Maddie was talking about, you have to see if there's a market for your product. You have to see if people are going to buy it. You can't just have your great idea and not have anybody buy it. So you're going to become interviewers and researchers also. All
And
right?
you can learn from asking people who are doing similar things. So you don't have to invent the wheel by yourself. You can have their experiences to help you get started.
Yeah. So are there any questions about the course or about what we learned today or anything before we go? If you have any questions, you can email me or call me. But otherwise, I think we're all set. So I'd like you to, you can talk to our mentors. Not everybody's going to be here every time. So Rachel, Howard, and Vito and I are going to be here every time, but not everybody else who's here today is going to be back for every class. So take advantage to talk to them if you can right now before you go home. Thank you.